Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutton, HurricaneTrack.com here, Wilmington, North Carolina. That's where I am. It is December the 21st. Hard to believe that. December 21st, 2023. 10 days left until the end of the year. 4 days left until Christmas. So let's talk winter. Nice wintry scene back there. I created that using Bing's generative AI. Dolly, I think that's what they call it. My friend Mike, friend of the project, Mike taught me how to do it. It's pretty easy to do. A nice, beautiful, peaceful AI-generated scene to help my thumbnail set the tone for what we're going to talk about today, at least on the first half of everything, and that is winter. It is the winter solstice today. And then on the back half of my discussion, because we are always looking ahead to the next hurricane season, we're going to talk about some things that I'm looking at, very interesting pieces every single week. Every month we get closer, obviously, but we see those puzzle pieces, they become more numerous, and they become easier to start sort of fitting together to at least give us a picture of what next year's hurricane season might give us. It's always a might. We don't know for sure, right? We certainly don't. And also, winter weather helps us at the HurricaneTrack project do all of our practicing and developing new equipment. And honestly, we're all kids at heart, I think, and a nice wintry scene like that, most people would dig something like that, even if it's just for a little while. We don't need the blizzards and the pileups and the 9 hours sitting on the tarmac because your plane is late. That'd be horrible. We don't need all that, but a nice wintry scene like this that was generated deep in the mind of Bing's AI image generator thing. Why not, right? All right, let's get on with it. First, meteorological and astronomical. What's the difference? Meteorological seasons have to do more with temperatures than anything else. And the astronomical part has to do with the Earth's axis of rotation, because we are tilted roughly 23 degrees off our axis. We're not straight up and down. A little bit off. What is it, 23 and a half or something like that? I actually don't remember the precise number, so we'll just call it 23, 23 and a half, whatever. And that affects the seasons. It gives us our seasons. And right now, as the infographic says, we are here. And we're at the winter solstice, as opposed to December 1st when we were at the meteorological start of winter. And that's, again, just a temperature thing having to do with everyday weather and meteorological statistics. The astronomical part of it has to do with the Earth's rotation on the axis there. Parts of the year, the northern hemisphere receives less sunlight, like now. And, for example, the southern hemisphere, you get full sunshine down there, if I'm not mistaken. We'll take a look at something from Ben Knoll in just a minute, if I have it up. Yep, there it is. So full sunshine down in the southern hemisphere, totally dark up at the North Pole and vicinity. All because of astronomical winter. Has nothing to do with the meteorological calendar, everything to do with our axis and our rotation on that axis. So just interesting tidbits for you. Here's another one. If we look at a year ago, that's the bottom one right here, 2022, this is our snow cover extent a year ago yesterday. All right? And it hasn't changed much from yesterday to today. So now, a year later, wow, we are really lacking in the snow department, especially out west. I mean, it is really, really remarkable to see that. What's been the problem, so to speak? Well, the El Nino has played a big role, and it changes the upper pattern and just sort of throws a big monkey wrench into things. All of that very warm water relative to average. And then it's just the way the pattern is. Not everything has to fit what we want it to fit. Last year was an anomaly. We had all of that precipitation, atmospheric river after atmospheric river coming into the west. Very anomalous moisture content overall. This year, just not the same setup. And a big part of the situation is we've had troughing up in the Gulf of Alaska, and that has not allowed the big ridge over British Columbia and the western U.S. to set up to then change the jet stream to dive into the lower 48. So winter has been hard to come by, with the exception of a couple of storms here and there, but nothing major, and certainly nothing like last year. Although today we do have a big upper level low that's sitting out here and that is bringing some flash flooding concerns to parts of Southern California and Arizona. You need the rain. You always need that rain. It's good to see. But when you rain on top of millions of people, it gets to be problematic. Absolutely. You know what? Let me jump on here to radar scope. Nope, we're not in Florida. Let's scooch this over to the southwest United States. Look at California real quick. And I guess we'll go close to LA area here. And let's zoom in and see what we got. Yeah, pretty darn heavy rain. Oxnard, the Simi Valley area, Thousand Oaks, Ventura. You don't see that very often. We saw it further south during Hillary back in the summer during hurricane season. But this is pretty exceptional to see in the winter time here, astronomical winter starting today. There's downtown Los Angeles for you. Most of it is west-northwest of that area. But yeah, flash flooding concerns. You've got burn scars, just a lot of people, the hillsides. It's just not, not set up to take all that rain. But it is raining out there. But it's not really a part of the overall pattern. More of this big upper level low that's come in. We haven't really flipped the pattern yet to where we're going to get storm after storm coming in to the lower 48. We'll talk about that more as we go forward. The rest of the map, as you can clearly see, pretty clear for today, which is a good thing. People traveling, I'm telling you what, I looked outside earlier, and after flying back from out west last night with my wife after vacation, and there was like literally dozens and dozens of contrails up in the sky, and they were all kind of going in the same direction. I'm doing a time lapse of it. Right now I got the GoPro sitting out on a ladder so that it's just got a good clear shot of the sky right outside my office. And a lot of people traveling, so when you get a nice blank map like this, that's 2 thumbs up for air travel, except Los Angeles, maybe Phoenix area. That could get kind of squirrely, so make sure you plan ahead, because what happens in one region can affect another region. I want to point something else out too. See these little green specks over here in the northeast New England? Yeah, that's from that big storm that came through. They have been very wet up there. And some of the video coming out of the region and some of the snow ski areas and just elsewhere along some of these rivers, violent, destructive flooding from too much rain. We have got to start respecting and understanding the power of simple rainfall. The tornadoes get huge headlines, understandably. Mayfield, Kentucky. You think about the Joplin, Missouri tornado, the big outbreak in 2011. What was that, April 27th? The Moore, Oklahoma, 1999. El Reno, 2013. Sure, that needs to be front and center. But when you get these big rain events like what we've had in the Northeast over and over again, seemingly since 2021, maybe even, Ida was pretty bad up there. But it just seems like this pattern, this cycle up there, and it's a big, big problem, and people aren't, I think, really understanding as much as we need our water, right? It is sometimes problematic. And we're going to do a better job of that here, especially during hurricane season, emphasizing the impacts that we think are going to have the most impact on you. And we don't want to discount the power of water. As necessary as it is, it can be destructive. I often say, hey, it made the Grand Canyon. I mean, come on. Right? All right, again, this is really cool from our friend Ben Knoll. The longest day, summer solstice in the southern hemisphere, and the shortest day, winter solstice, up here in the north. Ben's in New Zealand, by the way. 24 hours of dark at the North Pole. Raise your hand if you would like that. I think that would be a little too much. Again, maybe go visit it. Oh, okay, I've experienced it, and that's that. South Pole, 24 hours of daylight. I don't think I'd like that either. I got to have my sleep. And when I sleep like a vampire. Dark, dark, dark. Anyway, when is it all going to change? When are we going to get more wintry weather, a big trough down in the lower 48? Well, that's what it's going to take. We're going to need a big old trough to dig in. As I'm going to show you right now, we have more zonal flow. So the Madden-Julian oscillation in hurricane season affects a lot of what we see down here in the tropics, right? Even in the wintertime, it has its impact. The MJO does. And I think from what Ben is telling us here, that the MJO will be in phases 8, 1, and 2 into early January. So we start 2024 off with change. And that change should ease the strong Pacific jet that's been very, very persistent, raging across the Pacific over here, so that high pressure will likely build over western North America and Alaska with a more wintry pattern, i.e., high pressure up here, big trough in the lower 48 and the means, just generally speaking, and that would give us more of a wintry pattern for the lower 48. So what does that look like? Well, right now, and let's use something that'll pop out here. Black, I guess, will contrast enough. So right now, in the mid-levels of the atmosphere to upper levels, 500 millibars, so about 18,000 feet or so, most of the flow is generally zonal. A little bit of curviness to it, but it's coming off the Pacific. And the Pacific jet's coming in, flooding the lower 48, North America, you name it, with mild air relative to what we see going forward. Let's see what happens. This is your anomalies. So let's see if things change. So there you go. So just going out 5 days, you do get a deeper trough digging in like this. So your flow here comes out of the northwest. See how that works? And that's where your cold air is. There's more of it up here, and certainly more on the other side of the globe that needs to come across the pole. We call that cross-polar flow. We're almost ready to tap into that. That would be like up here, but this hasn't come all the way down just yet. So we got to get a big pattern change. We got to ease off that Pacific jet stream, and we have to see when does that happen. We're getting closer here. This is about a week out. You get a little bit more still getting down towards Hudson Bay, almost into the lower 48 there, the northeast, getting in on the action a little bit. These lower heights. See, that's the pattern change. But still, pretty low pressure over here, Gulf of Alaska. It's not quite where we need to see it yet. Now, I'm not a winter expert on patterns, but I know enough to generally understand what we're looking at here. As we get out towards the end of the year, that's more like it there. We start to get high pressure up here to help drive that cold air from the northern regions into the lower 48, northern North America, all the way down maybe to the Gulf Coast. This is 10 days out roughly. As we start the new year, let's just take it all the way out. We'll have to see. Still got some southern energy there. But then again, on this run, January 6th, there's your Gulf of Alaska low pressure again. We'll just have to see. But we're getting towards a more active pattern, it does seem. These are the anomalies. This is what it looks like over the next 2 weeks if you just look at it from a sensible weather perspective. There's a storm system there. Not much else. That's kind of blank as we get towards the end of the year and the month. Some lake effect snows maybe as we're going out into time. Still pretty much blank, just good lake effect snows up here. New Year's Eve, maybe. There's some action coming in off the Pacific, perhaps. And then maybe some southern stream energy here with some more northern branch, cold air, Arctic air, whatever, as we get towards January 6th, 2 weeks away. So we're getting there. To get from, to this scene here, it's going to take a little bit of time, evidently. All right? So let me just wrap up the winter part. Again, my forte is not winter forecasting. Winter weather impacts, I'm a lot better at interpreting, going out and covering it, that kind of thing. There are others that are out there. Eric Webb comes to mind. There's a gentleman out west, Daniel Swain, I think is his name. Western weather, but very, very good at communicating things related especially to California weather. In other words, there are experts that watch the winter stuff much more so than I do, and once we start to really see some signs of these changes coming, I'll be sure to tap into their infographics and anything else they're posting. Ben Knoll is a good example from some of their tweets. All right. So now, what I am pretty good at least I think, the hurricane stuff. We're going to be looking at this once a week from here on out until probably April or May. And then we leave it behind because everything will be set into motion. What does that mean? Well, I really believe looking at this, which is data, it's not a forecast, this is data. This is the equivalent of looking out the window and seeing what's going on. Our pressure pattern is very easy to understand here. It is up. And when you get it to go up, way out in the southwest Pacific area, between Darwin, Australia, and Tahiti, that is the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index. The 30-day average, the last 30 days, minus 1.59. That is a substantial increase from the minus 8 in November, and certainly the minus 13 back in September when the El Nino was really cranking. Even the 90-day is up to minus 6. Why do I bring these points about? Because the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia considers minus 7 and lower as El Nino territory for the SOI, especially on the 90-day average. All right? Because when you get those negative numbers like that, the pressure pattern is such that let's see, where's my chart here? When it's really low over here, your net flow of air, when the air pressure is low, the net flow of air is this way. And you get that with a high SOI. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. If you got low pressure over here, high pressure over here, high pressure flows to low pressure, there you go. That's with a positive SOI and lower pressures over in the West Pacific. Right now, in the last few months, it's been the opposite, where the net flow of air, we've had these westerly wind bursts coming across, and that has warmed the tropical Pacific. The relaxation of those trades and a bunch of other things all interconnected have given us this El Nino. But it is already starting to crack around the edges, so to speak, and the seeds are being planted as we look at the SOI. It's going up consistently, and it is my belief, looking at the models and the other, again, data, and this is a huge piece of that right here. You ever see those, usually it's political stuff, which, whatever, but it says, look at this video of so-and-so. What do you notice? It's so weird, but we'll do the same thing with this picture. Look at this picture. What do you notice? What do you see? I see, as soon as I look at this, I could not see this for like 4 months, going between times I look at this graph here, this chart, and I could look at it and go, oh my goodness, it's that right there. It's not this. We've already seen all this. This is your El Nino. This is cold anomalies, or are cold anomalies, at the subsurface in the Western Pacific. And that is a huge area that is growing and growing and growing. And once we start to really kick up that SOI and the trade winds get cranking up here as we get into next year, after January, that's going to start to take root and upwell, coming to the surface, and we're going to erode those warm anomalies on the right side of this chart very quickly and transition, in my belief, to neutral, cool neutral, then maybe even La Nina by next August or so. And that brings us to this, because you throw it all together and you got what your climate models are quote-unquote seeing. We're in El Nino now, and then it falls off a cliff. Look at that. And then the odds of neutral really go up. But then these blues, that is very intriguing. By the peak of hurricane season, August, September, October, the forecast probability is a little bit more than 50% for La Nina at this lead time. That is pretty substantial, because we also still have an anomalously warm Atlantic, that horseshoe shape, warmer than it should be. This will cool off. This should stay as warm relative to average, and the models are showing a warm tropical Atlantic next year, and you know where that should lead overall. Again, this is just December. We've got a long way to go, but everything seems to be headed in that direction, and we'll talk about it more and more as we get into early 2024, especially, well, okay, what can I do about it? We don't want to just throw information out that sounds alarming without giving you some solutions and some ideas and some strategies to deal with it. No, we're not trying to stress you out. Again, I've said it a lot. I think this is a gift that we can see into the future like this using meteorology and climatology and these amazing forecasts. Let's do something with it. We're given that opportunity. Let's do not squander it. All right, but first things first, we are in winter. What a nice scene, and we should enjoy that. I guess if you like winter weather, Again, it looks like as we get into early next year, things will start to change. Keeping up with those changes, that'll be part of my weekly job. There's a lot of sources out there. You guys know that. And I appreciate you tuning in to me to at least get a little piece of action from what I'm seeing and what I'm looking at as well. All right, but we'll point out other people, as I mentioned, who are on top of this stuff even more so than I am. I'm usually really looking at the hurricane stuff even in the off season, always working on projects and ideas. But the winter weather, yep, that definitely gives us the opportunity to test some things and be ready for when those hurricanes do come back, because it's only a matter of time and we'll be right back to June 1st and beyond. All right, you guys have a great rest of your week. I will be not off, but no updates for the next few days. Let's get through Christmas and let's meet again next Wednesday. Does that work for you? Works for me. So yeah, I'll do another update next Wednesday, and then we'll close out 2023 and get ready for what I think will be a pretty impactful big weather year of 2024. All right, so Merry Christmas to everybody, from my family to yours. Enjoy scenes like that if you've got them, and if you do, consider yourself lucky, because that's hard to come by this year. But I do think, as I said, it'll change as we get into January, and it should. Climatologically speaking, it's still just starting into winter. I mean, come on. All right, again, thanks for watching. For all of us at Hurricane Track, I do appreciate your time and attention. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again next week.